Now making it clear to SOAS that we are continuing to stay until all 7 of our demands are met. SOAS have released a statement and story on their Instagram claiming that they have been engaging with the liberated zone in a so-called constructive manner since the beginning of our encampment on the 6th of May. To put it bluntly, this is complete and utter bullshit. No engagement whatsoever. And even if there was, and the engagement that did happen, it was violent and repressive. Shame! The shameful executive board of this university sent out an email saying that we will not tolerate violence or behavior that infringes on the rights of others, threatens members of our community, and undermines the free and safe space that a university is meant to provide. Tell me, is it okay for SOAS to lie and physically assault students with racially targeted attacks? Is that okay? Is that okay? Is it okay for SOAS a day before their negotiations, which were in bad faith, to suspend students and provide them with disciplinary notices for protesting against the genocide that this so-called decolonial institution is funding? Is that okay? No! Management and the security they have externally hired treats this institution as a prison, are the violent ones, and they are the ones that have constantly repressed students for speaking up against genocide. Shame! To SOAS management, that email you sent on the very first day of the encampment claiming that we are protesting because we're unhappy about the loss of civilian life in Gaza. Shame on you!
Shame!
Call it what it is. It is crystal clear. This is a genocide, and we aren't unhappy. We are beyond enraged at your complicity. We are beyond enraged that you're downgrading the inhumane, heinous crimes we have seen committed by the Zionist entity against our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and merely reducing them to words describing the horrors, such as calling it a tragedy. Shame!
Shame!
I'm Hala Hanina from Newcastle University. I'm from Gaza, Palestine. I come from a fourth generation of refugee family who came to Gaza in 1948. And as more than 70% of the Palestinian population in Gaza, I lived in Gaza. And I left Gaza at the beginning of October for my studies here in the UK. So unfortunately, I wasn't there. However, today I'm in Newcastle. Dr. Amin, he's my colleague, so please take care of him. Okay. I came here by coincidence. I was here for a seminar, Palestinian Studies seminar, and I saw the encampment and I said I must speak. But then I realized that here's my Sarah and I can't see him, my dear friend, without speaking. But then I looked again, and this is Syrian, Dr. Syrian, and Dr. Amin, my colleagues, Hiba, Habibti, Hiba Abu Nada, my friend, Dr. Ibrahim, behind my back, and they're all dear people to my heart. And if I don't speak for the encampment, I'm speaking for them, for the Palestinians killed, and they're standing by my side now, or I'm standing by their side. I would like to tell you something about Maysara Reyes. I think all of you know him. Dr. Maysara is a friend of mine. We met in 2014 after the Israeli 2014 aggression. It didn't start on the 7th of October, apparently. And we volunteered together in Al Ihsan campaign. It's a charitable campaign that was trying to help people who became refugees because of the Israeli bombardments of their homes, and also visiting the families of the people who were killed by the Israeli occupation. And at that time, Dr. Maysara Reyes and myself and a lot of us became dear friends, and years went on and we're doing so many things in Gaza, trying to rebuild, trying to help, trying to do so many things. To an extent, it wasn't only us who were helping, all the community. That I always say it in each interview. I have never seen a homeless in Gaza, in a place that has been under 18 years of Israeli strict blockade, 6 Israeli aggressions. I've never seen a homeless before I came to the UK. It was my first sight of a homeless, and I was shocked. How could you leave them asleep at the streets? And Israel now have made all the population in Gaza homeless. All of us. My parents, my siblings, my friends, everyone. And those who are not homeless are either homeless in mass graves under the ground, killed by the Israeli occupation, or bulldozered by Israeli tanks under the ground by the Israeli occupation. Among them, multiple of my colleagues. Talking about Maysara, in 2019, I myself and a group of us had Chevening Scholarship and came to do our masters in the UK. He did children and women health in KCL, and he was very passionate about the health of everyone. And then COVID-19 started, and we completed our studies, we did the dissertation and all of that. And there was one slot when people were able to get back to Gaza. I didn't choose it, but Maysara did. Maysara immediately went back to Gaza in mid of COVID-19 to stay with his family, the people he loved, and to stay and serve his community as a physician. At that year, we as people from Gaza felt a little bit isolated from the rest of the Palestinians, because like COVID-19 to us is different than in different areas. So we made a group for Gaza only alumni and Chevening students. And I called it, unfortunately, Chat Nihayat al-Alam, which means conversation of the end of the world. And I'm already regretting it because it was the end of the world for us. On the 5th of November, Israel have put a blackout over Gaza, so we had no news about our families, our friends, and no one. And on that day, and on the 29th, Wednesday, in a Newcastle encampment, some students were occupying one of the very bad historical colonial history buildings, Armstrong building in Newcastle. And while they were occupying it, our university, I was going to say Israeli government, our university, it brought 140 police officers to bring out 15 students. So students' community came together outside, hoping that they're standing together would stop the brutality of the police. And from that, the police have punched some lungs of students and public people. They have pushed students to the ground. They have stabbed on one woman, and she had three I don't remember, ribs broken. They have stabbed on some students' legs, so their knees are now in a very bad situation. One of the students has a torn thing in her knee, and she would have to live with that the entire of her life. And they have sexually harassed us. I was video documenting that they were sexually harassing us. They beated us, they pushed against us, and they criminalized us in all ways. And I was screaming at them, what the hell are you doing? Those are your people. You're not Israelis. You're not terrorists. Why are you acting in that way? Then they have arrested 3 other people, among them Mick Bowman, a person who should be a national hero in this country. He walked 6 months to Palestine for a golden goal, for a freedom of Palestine. They kidnapped him and arrested him after injuring him in his head. And while I was standing, while we were pushed by police, some of us like pushed to the ground and all the brutality, I started crying. I didn't cry because this was painful. No, I had more painful things. Great March of Return, for instance. But I cried for a sole reason, because I remembered Maysara. He said he wouldn't love to live in this world outside Gaza. And at that exact moment, I knew if Maysara wasn't killed, who would love the world? Who would love the students? Who would have been very proud of all of them? For this generation that is not repeating the mistakes of the old generations. If the old generation did what this generation is doing, this kind of genocide wouldn't have happened. And to the students, in their strength and all of their allies, standing together will not allow any other genocide to happen. So please stay strong. We need you more than ever. And as a professor said today to me, we need your solidarity, not your empathy. We need your action. Stay strong. Happy birthday to this encampment. I'm so proud and happy of those celebration zones starting to spread light over the darkness of the UK power and its colonialism. From this place, colonialism started, and from this place it would end.
And that is because this institution wants to protect its empty buildings more than it wants to protect its students. We saw on Tuesday that it is willing to tell its security guards, because this is coming from the top, they're telling their security guards to use violence to protect buildings. Well, I have news for you, SOAS. You have 3 buildings here, not just 1. So if you'd like to follow me, we are going to move our protest onto the BMI steps. Please join me on the steps, don't just stand around the steps. We won't be intimidated! We won't be intimidated! Let's go till we're liberated! Let's up till we're liberated! We won't be intimidated! We won't be intimidated! Over 40,000 men! You're oppressing kids instead! You're oppressing kids instead! We'll never be defeated! We'll never be defeated!
Whose campus is once again liberated? We want justice, you say how?
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 End attacks on students now!
End attacks on students now! You say how?
End attacks on students now!
End attacks on students now!
We want justice, you say how?
We want justice, you say how?
End attacks on students now!
End attacks on students now!
We want justice, you say how?
We want justice, you say how?
United!
We'll never be defeated!
We said the students united!
We'll never be defeated! We are the students! We won't be silent! It's all the coming down!
So as I mentioned, the amount of repression that we've been experiencing from the school has been increasing in the last 2 weeks, and in particular this week. So earlier in this week, on the eve of the negotiations that we already believed to be in bad faith because they were happening in private on management's terms, we found out that the management was suspending 2 students and disciplining another 6 of them from the encampment for engaging in peaceful protest against this university for its complicity in genocide. As a result of that, we withdrew from the negotiations altogether, and we called an emergency rally that was both about this escalating situation in Rafah and the escalation of administrative repression here at SOAS. During that rally, we moved the rally from the encampment behind me to the front steps of SOAS, the site that has historically been the site of protest here at SOAS. Management, which has for years now really, but especially in the last month, been securitizing our campus and bringing on private security, overreacted and panicked, and private security attacked members of our encampment, specifically targeting black protesters, pulling them by their hair, throwing them to the ground, and requiring 2 of them to go to A&E to seek emergency medical treatment. This is just the latest instance. It was at least the 4th time in the last 2 weeks that security, whether that be SOAS in-house security or contracted security, have laid hands on students. So we are in a situation where there are over 40,000 Palestinians who have been martyred. SOAS is complicit in that. And instead of doing anything about their complicity, they're laying hands on students, ignoring our reasonable demands, and further worsening the situation here on campus. So our demands remain the same. We have the 7 demands that I outlined earlier related to disclosure, divestment, ending ties with Barclays, ending ties with the University of Haifa, and implementing a full academic boycott of Israel, committing to the reconstruction of Palestine's higher education sector, ending the repression of student protests here on campus, and finally pushing for the UK government to implement an arms embargo and push for an immediate ceasefire. Those demands have not changed and they will not change. They are the bare minimum of what this university needs to do to comply with the Palestinian call for boycott, divestment, and sanction. Our demands represent all 3 aspects of boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning the Zionist entity. In the last month, we've seen the university mainly respond by trying to, 1, ignore, or 2, make very vague and symbolic gestures. So the week of the encampment went up, there was some limited disclosure of investments that happened. So that was responsive to the first demand of disclosing. But what we saw from the disclosure was that the university was invested heavily in the companies that we identified as being complicit in Israeli settler colonialism. That's over £5 million invested in companies like Alphabet, Albemarle, Microsoft, Sony, and Barclays. So clearly they haven't met the substantive demands that we're talking about. There's been no motion on cutting ties with Barclays, ending the relationship with the University of Haifa. And in fact, as I've just outlined, our 6th demand, ending the repression of student protests on campus, has actually been actively violated in the course of this encampment. Whether that's the disciplinary measures that were taken earlier this week, or whether that's the violence that we've been experiencing from security also this week and throughout the last 2 weeks. I would just say that what we've seen in the last 30 days is absolutely shameful behavior from management and absolutely inspiring solidarity from our community. That means both the campus community here at SOAS, where students have continued to turn out in droves to support the encampment and our demands, and it also means the wider community here in London and in Bloomsbury, who have been helping sustain this encampment through donations, through physical labor, and through food. And so while this university continues to choose to be on the wrong side of history, our communities are making their demands clear. We are fostering stronger and stronger relationships with Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza. We are continuing to raise the flag of Palestine high on this campus, rally the support that we have in this community, and we will continue to do so until our demands are met.